Inter-Party Organization for Dialogue, IPOD, is facing one of its toughest tests as the ruling National Resistance Movement, NRM, takes on the mantle to chair the forthcoming summit. With the summit meeting called for tomorrow, top opposition parties, JEMA and FDC, have announced that they will not attend the summit. Already, there has been bad blood between the opposition and NRM, with the opposition accusing the NRM and security agencies of arresting, kidnapping, and torturing supporters during the 2021 general elections. So, can IPOD ease the current political tension? Tonight we host Ibrahim Semujunganda, Opposition Chief Whip, Dr. Gerard Sranda, DP Secretary General, and Mr. James Tweheyo, the NRM SEC member. Gentlemen, I want to thank you so much for having honored our invitation to come for this very important discussion, because tomorrow we have the Inter-Party Organization for Dialogue Summit, which will be chaired by the NRM. But already, the Honorable Ibrahim Semujunganda, you have indicated your unwillingness as a party to attend dialogue, and yet I always knew FDC. I actually thought the D in the FDC was dialogue, but why don't you want to dialogue?
We received the invitation to attend the meeting tomorrow, and the FDC, I think Secretary General, because I spoke to the President on Sunday, wrote to the NRM. The Secretary General wrote to the NRM Secretary General, who is the chairperson of the council. I think it's the second organ of IPOD, explaining reasons why we will not be attending. We've excused ourselves, and the reasons, part of the reason is that because of the treatment, of the FDC, yet comfortable to go and sit with Mr. Museveni, who orchestrated all the mistreatment. Right from the nomination, even before nomination, it only intensified at the nomination for the last presidential elections. The FDC president, from the nomination, is kidnapped at the FDC office. You know, we had prepared the prayers. We said we would start with the prayers before we go for nomination. The military took over our offices. I remember I was, because of the numbers involved, I had volunteered to be a driver. So I went driving to pick the president. I saw him being kidnapped as a thief, bundled brutally into a vehicle, driven without shoes to the nomination center of the Electoral Commission. And throughout the campaign, he was being tear gassed. At one time, nearly killed. He had to be wheeled into a hospital in Usoga. So that's what we went through. But it's not only presidential candidates that went through that. Ugandans, many of them, others got killed. Others are still in jail. This afternoon, the Minister for Internal Affairs presented a list of people who had been kidnapped. So therefore, as FDC, we said we are not in a frame to go and attend a meeting with our tormentors. We think Mr. Museveni, as chairman of NRM and as chairman of IPOD Summit, must demonstrate good faith. It happens in many other countries.
Honorable Semuju,
yes,
having an opportunity to speak to the chief executive of the country in one meeting where you're like equals, speak truth to power, expose whatever he said to the full glare of the public, ask him to account for the mistakes or crimes that have been committed, is an opportunity you're missing that does not come often. Why don't you just go there, talk to them, speak the truth, expose them, well, and let the world see them the way how they are?
You see, the difference between us and many Ugandans, including some of our colleagues, maybe in the opposition, is that this is not an opportunity, or if it is not a new one. Even before the FDC was formed, In 2001, after the general election, Mr. Museveni met one of the FD's chairman, late Sam Njuba, and said we need to talk. And the Honorable Njuba, at that time heading the reform agenda, because Dr. Kizza Besigye was an exile in South Africa, advised what will constitute into a meeting to discuss the future of Uganda. The moment he asked Museveni that we must speak about the transition from Museveni to another government, that's where the meeting ended. The 2016 election was as acrimonious as this one. Immediately after those elections, we had volunteers, not Mr. Museveni, people came by themselves. The elders by Justice Ogola, the Situation Room, they all came to FDC that proposing that we need to have a dialogue as a country. At that time we told them there is no way we are going to do a dialogue when Dr. Kizza Besigye is in Lusera. They went and spoke to Museveni, and subsequently Dr. Kizza Besigye is released. I was telling to her before the show started, we had gone very far, even drafted documents, because we said Mr. Museveni is aware of all the issues afflicting this country. We need to be announcing that on this we'll do this, on this we have done this. So we prepared many documents. We went as far as agreeing on who will be a mediator, who will be a guarantor. And we proposed the late former Tanzanian President Benjamin Mkapa, and Museveni agreed. We proposed the Kofi Annan, who is also now late, and Museveni agreed. But he kept making one demand that I want to meet Besigye before these things start. When Dr. Besigye refused, Museveni now was no longer interested. And I kept asking, and I was telling him jokingly, maybe a witch doctor told him that you need to meet Besigye. Because this thing had nothing to do with Besigye. Besigye is disposable. He can even die.
I just don't understand. At every opportunity, if somebody is asking you to talk, asking you for dialogue, for heaven's sake, to talk, I don't know why you're so reluctant.
No. This
even
time,
take that opportunity.
this time
because the end of the democratic process will begin with a discussion, with the persuasion.
Yes,
with
I want
and I know Dr. Besigye is not an institution, but just the ask itself, let's talk, is a good thing.
You're making the point. Us who are not Besigye, we prepared documents and said they should go ahead, and Museveni said it's okay, we are good on everything. But he kept demanding that he wanted to meet Besigye as if it was personal.
What was wrong with
but the point you make, I want to give context to this. It is not Museveni who asked for this meeting. This is supposed to be a routine meeting of the IPOD. We only excused ourselves that with Museveni in the chair we will not attend. When it is DP and maybe Chairman Mao chairing, we will be comfortable to go and sit being chaired by one of the victims. But to go before Museveni, who has harassed us through the campaign, who is still holding on to people's children.
You understand that the chairing of the IPOD meeting is rotational from party to party?
That's why we said we are not leaving. We did not say that we are leaving IPOD. We said when Museveni is chairing, we will not be there. It's not a crime. It's not a crime.
You know,
the others who are comfortable.
The tagline of IPOD is putting Uganda first.
Interestingly, people forget the history of IPOD. IPOD was never meant to be a social club where you go and meet and then disperse. The idea behind IPOD primarily was to help Uganda achieve a transition that it has not achieved. IPOD went and helped Ghana, the Netherlands Institute for Democracy, and that's why the first destination, the first meeting of the IPOD outside Uganda was in Ghana, deliberately. Because under J. Rawlings was as brutal. You can't compare him to Museveni, someone who was loading his opponents in a helicopter and they are thrown in the ocean. But because of the talking, genuine talking in Ghana, they agreed that Ghana was bigger than J. Rawlings. They went into a transition, first wrote a constitution, agreed on it, and then restored term limits to 4 years each. J. Rawlings went for the first term, the second term, and then he left. he brought his vice president and he was defeated by opposition who were in power for 8 years, and then his party came back for 8 years now.
But you see,
so the point is, the point is,
you're making actually solidifies my point that you need to actually realize that Museveni, Uganda is bigger than Museveni, and for the sake of Uganda and the continuity of our democracy, you go there and you put Uganda first. Forget about who's chairing. You put your views before them. If they are weak, you expose them to the rest of Uganda to see, and it's an opportunity for you to actually speak truth to power directly to them.
We've given these reasons as FDC. I have just seen news that JEMA says the earlier IPOD resolutions are not being fulfilled. So they see no reason going to generate another list of resolution. For them, that is their major point. It will be one of the points that the IPOD, those who will go and wish them well, maybe that needs to be a starting point.
Okay.
But you need to sympathize finally with people who have spoken with Mr. Museveni as a person, leave alone the institution of the NRM. It becomes very difficult. The broken promises. I have read books of people who have worked with Museveni, his contemporaries, people he was with. Most of the titles betrayed by my reader, by John Kazora, betrayed by somebody, by Sam Kareganjuba. So really, when people are betrayed, you need to be cautious and you need to be slow when you are pushing them into something they have tried many, many times and got no results.
But you also know in your own quarters of the Forum for Democratic Change, you have big names, people of high recognition and integrity who have been in FDC, but you look back and somehow they decided to go slow. People like Augustine Ruzindana, people like Kazura talking about, people like Amanya Mushega, people like Garuga Musinguzi. I mean, these are names of people you no longer see. So something happens.
You wouldn't be inviting me here if they were still there. Wafula Ogutu was the spokesperson of the FDC. You and I, he was our boss at Munda. People work and go, even me. In the next 5 or 10 years.
That's not the case, sir.
In the next 5 and 10 years, you will be having another FDC spokesperson here.
Mr. Tuheyo, really, when you find the chief whip of the opposition, you know, very reluctant to speak or have to be in a meeting chaired by the chief executive of the country and the party president of your own, that is an indictment on your own party.
I don't think it's an indictment. In the first place, IPOD was agreed on as an institution by all the parties that are in parliament. And FDC is one of the parties in parliament. DP is another party. NRM is another party, and UPC. And JEMA, eventually through a by-election, joined the parliament, and it is welcome. And by the way, I think in the next parliament, even NUP will be welcome. So it is a platform where people with different ideologies, where groups with different beliefs can meet and have a discussion and have an engagement and point at each other and say, look, in our view, this country should be led like this. So when a team like that sits, and it has its regulations, every 6 months there is change of leadership. We have not faulted. We have ever been leaders of the same group. And this is another time we are coming in. FDC has been one, DP has been one, and every 6 months there is supposed to be a summit. I sympathize with my colleagues, especially Honorable Nganda, that when there is the call to come and sit on table and discuss and point out issues for each other, that is the time when they have the greatest excuse not to appear. Yes, he's raising issues that possibly there are some documents which were supposed to be signed and they were never done, or other issues that were supposed to be done, right. But then also they have always backtracked whenever there is a need and an opportunity to have a discussion. And I don't know, it makes me doubt whether if FDC was in power, it would allow others to come for a discussion, if it is denying the rest of the country an opportunity for a discussion. In this case, for example, it is not only this time that FDC is backtracking, that NRM is chairing. Even when DP was chairing, we had a meeting in Munyonyo. FDC never appeared. And we were with them, we had a discussion with them, we arranged with them. At that time, Honorable Nandala Mafabi was there. We couldn't get that done. When FDC was chairing, they never arranged nor organized for a summit through their period. Even when their time for doing that was there, they never did it.
That was during COVID.
They never did it.
Yeah, but you know, we are
COVID
under
is still
lockdown.
there. So, even when somebody now creates every other excuse, that when the meeting of this nature is there, he will have reason for not coming in, then it begs the question whether there is that willingness, there is that need to put the country first.
Okay. Dr. Siranda, you know, he's the opposition chief whip. And for that matter, he has a bigger voice in parliament representing all the opposition. And now they're telling you that, look, it's not a good idea for them to join. And the Democratic Party, in terms of the numerical strength of the numbers of MPs you have, you're weaker compared to FDC. What makes you think that you can go in that party, that summit tomorrow, and you add value to your party or even to your country?
Thank you so much, Ndugu Kamara and all my colleagues. I want to appreciate the council members and our current chair, the Honorable Justine Kasoro Mumba, the entire secretariat led by Frank Rosa, and all our member parties. There is a party. There is no party called opposition.
I know that.
There is a party called the Democratic Party, the FDC, JEMA, and UPC.
And
we only
all of
get
you
to
have a chief
yes,
whip
we just
opposition.
get to the umbrella that gets us together. But we entered the MOU as an entity, as a Democratic Party. That is what brings us to the IPOD. It's not because we are opposition, because of our first ticket that we have a member of parliament. We appreciate the working together, but all our institutions have their historical backgrounds built around democracy, dialogue, and that has been the DNA of the Democratic Party. The Honorable Semuju comes from a party with a different DNA, the UPC with a different DNA. And we believe that dialogue is not an agreement. It's starting to speak.
But do you understand that the forum, you all have a background?
Yes.
FDC has a background,
yes,
you could say largely coming from the NRM. People who understand NRM and President Museveni better seem to trust him less.
We had a leader. We had the leader who sacrificed his life and died in Benecho Kiwanuka. So that's the background we come from. A leader of the party that went to work with Idi Amin, and he lost his life. So you can't compare to a party that came from NRM. Maybe they understand better. And everybody can speak, but every institution can take their decision. As DP, we believe that this platform is very important for us to engage.
With all respect, people who realize that Amin was not somebody to play with, they decided to
that's why I'm
to
telling
move away,
you.
And they lived another day and they're still here today.
Yes, that's why I'm telling you
so
that sometimes
that could have been an error of judgment on the side of the leadership of the Democratic Party.
Sometimes,
are you making the same?
Sometimes it will cost your life. Today we are speaking about the man that decided to take that time. Maybe his decision to join the man then saved some lives of some people. They are living because he took a decision. There are certain things that we're living for because certain people took a decision.
Is it of concern to you that the people who know President Museveni best are trusting him least?
The same people that came from Museveni's side came to our side and we trusted them. We worked with them. They came from Museveni, having brought him, worked with him, we trusted them. And we are working with them. For me, it's about accepting to work within the platform You participate in a process that lead to the summit, and every time you jump out of the process. We went to Jinja in 2016. The Honorable Nanda Al-Mafavi was then the leader of the IPOD Council. We sat in the whole process. He's the one that did the final text. As we are about to enter the meeting, he says, no, I can't go to the meeting. Honorable Nsovuga, take over. We went to that meeting. The key of the issue that we had to present was then the former presidential candidate, Dr. Kizza Besigye's arrest. After 2 days, he was released. Because, and several other people that were under detention that time. I believe that we are not going to fear to engage. When you look at Africa, most of the countries, even the Ghana that we keep bringing as an example, there was room for engagement. People had to engage. Chiroran, people engaged.
Okay.
So and as DP, we believe that we're not going to fear to negotiate, to discuss, to dialogue, because we can't just let President Museveni think he's the owner of this country. We will engage him.
You are the oldest political party in Uganda.
Yeah.
But you are the party also that has not tested political power.
No, you're wrong. Give right. I expect that you're going to give right information. DP led Uganda. It is the DP that led Uganda preparatory government. Ben Kiwanuka actually was the leader of this country that prepared Uganda to the independence. So when we talk about dialogue, we have been part of the process of every dialogue in Uganda. Maybe that's why our DNA is that we should trust, we should engage.
Unfortunately,
we don't have the DNA.
The Democratic Party of Benedict Kiwanuka is not the Democratic Party of Dr. Zranga.
Whatever that you want to speak about.
Unfortunately.
Maybe Ben is not there. I want to say the same thing. Maybe I wouldn't be here if Ben was here. The same thing Honorable Semuju is saying. If the people you mentioned were here, he wouldn't be here. So I want you to appreciate
the ideas and the ideals.
I want you to respect the Democratic Party
and the kind of energy they have.
Respect
the commitment to their country, to their party is very different from the generation of today.
That was their time then. We also have our time, and we are the ones that you have. That's why you've invited me here, and we believe that we are doing the right thing as the DP.
But Mr. Duheyo, what are the things that are so urgent to you that you decided to convene the summit? What is it that you want to talk about in this summit?
It is the 6
months. First of all,
I
told you in IPOD, the leadership is rotational.
Yeah.
It takes 6 months, and we expect every 6 months, whichever party is in leadership, to organize a summit.
Yeah, but in your case, in this summit for tomorrow, what is it that you want to talk about?
We have done what is expected of us. Secondly, it is only being civilized that when you are in any position, whether you are the leader or the led, you engage the leadership, you engage the persons, you engage yourselves as a group, so that you can get direction, good direction for the leadership of the country. And it is also important to give respect, to give the chances to any other person available in terms of leadership like parties are, to come and engage. But as you earlier said, when you give an opportunity to the team to come and engage, and you see every time you give them an opportunity, they don't only disengage, but possibly, I don't want to use the word fear, refuse to engage. It makes you doubt them. Much as they say, yes, Museveni is not trusted by the same team. That's the reason perhaps why they are not in the party in which he is. And I wouldn't like to say that Museveni does not trust them either, because I don't speak for him as a person. But I wouldn't trust them, and for them they are creating a clear ground why they should not be trusted. And let me tell you the reason why. When we arranged for the dialogue, it was not ourselves, by the way, it was I think the FDC at the time, said, yes, we are striving to rule this country. Why don't we take the dialogue to Entebbe? They said nobody can step in Entebbe State House when Museveni is there. But I said, you are striving to go to the same State House. Said, no, we agreed and moved it from Entebbe to another venue. Still, it went to Munyonyo. Still, they never went there. This time, Because of that same reason that they wanted it outside the State House, say let it go to Kororo where the public
But you know,
can engage.
you have been,
They
you
are
have,
still
your
disengaging.
party, the party chairman and your party have been criticized in Uganda and abroad
Yes.
for violation of human rights, for the intolerance and you know, not allowing dissent. And to some people, they think tomorrow you could use the opportunity to show that you are dialoguing, you are talking, and so there's some form of democracy. I mean, even them, they wouldn't want, they could deny you that opportunity for projecting an image of Uganda dialoguing when actually there's no dialogue. Because that could just be...
this is not the first time NRM party is dialoguing. The same
but
party,
you
the
know,
same
the
government.
European Union, the United States, and other democracy-seeking entities have been asking you to dialogue. So we can understand why you so much want to dialogue, because there is also pressure on you
not
to be seen, to be engaging members of the opposition.
Not necessarily that. When the government was fighting with Kony, there was dialogue. Certainly, you were around, you could see that.
Yeah, but there's a...
When there is need for us to lead in the dialogue, because we're the chair, there is that opportunity to dialogue. Even when other parties were leading, NRM never failed
but
to
why
appear for
would
the dialogue.
FDC join you when they actually think you are very pretentious?
And why wouldn't it join us to prove that we are not pretentious? Because this is the time they would prove. So if they pull their feet back and do not give even the community and the public and this country a chance to prove that really what we have been saying is this, then it would appear as if they are deliberately dodging, so that they don't reach a point where the proof can be really watertight. So in my view, yes, they may say they are denying NRM the opportunity to show the world that we can dialogue, but in my view they are even cementing it that NRM is always willing to dialogue, and it is these other colleagues who are not ready to dialogue.
No, FDC is a party led by men and women of substance, men who are persuasive, men who know how to put the arguments.
I don't doubt that.
I still don't understand, with the skills that you have and the capabilities that you have, you don't take that opportunity to expose all the ills you have seen in NRM before the highest person in the land, in the public glare, so that Ugandans can
You see,
know.
Kamara, we are talking about very serious matters.
Yeah.
The seriousness of this matter, it's not that there is a discovery that is going to be made tomorrow. These are very serious matters. We have written, exchanged papers with Mr. Museveni, listed all the issues. Tomorrow, by the way, you are misrepresenting IPOD. They are not going for a dialogue. They are going to meet to decide whether there should be a dialogue.
Yeah, that's setting the agenda.
We've been part of a dialogue, not even a meeting to decide whether there should be a dialogue. 2016, I have told you, we agreed and Museveni signed on the documents, draft documents, I still have them, that this country needs a dialogue. It will be chaired by Benjamin Mkapa. It will be guaranteed by Kofi Annan. The Swedish Minister for International Affairs came here, met Museveni.
The national dialogue that was meant to be, it was meant to be in May when we got
this was different.
And COVID.
Today, it is not that dialogue that is being carried forward, but a meeting to decide whether there should be dialogue. Even if we are very persuasive, as you are now enticing us, you can imagine that at one time the dialogue was about to happen, documentation prepared, it did not happen. And we are not the only victims of this manipulation by Mr. Museveni. So the trouble is that we have had a relationship now. How many years? More than 10 years of IPOD.
More than 10 years.
If for 10 years, even if you've been living with a person for 10 years, there are things you can't do to a person you've lived with for 10 years. But you are still beating us 10 years into a relationship in IPOD. Our presidential candidate being kidnapped and shoes flying in the air. But there are also other candidates in Uganda. The Honorable Chagulanyi, at one time, even a DP president, I saw him being harassed. I mean, that level of patience that you beat me today, I come for a dialogue. Then I beat you beat me another day. People will begin thinking that we are stupid. Someone who's been beating you for 2 months 1 month later he says, okay, now we are in Kololo, and you go. We wish well those who want to go. And for me, I have participated in all these meetings with the FDC to draft documents for a dialogue. At one time I even got persuaded, like the argument you are making now. I said maybe there will be a cut-off. Maybe now Museveni wants a dialogue. First of all, he's grown old. I think maybe now he thinks about the future. With a lot of enthusiasm, I went into the meeting with the Nandaras, with the Waforas, with General Muntu, with everybody. We drafted documents. Dr. Besigye, I think there is nobody in Uganda here, I can tell you, understands Museveni like Besigye. Because he kept laughing and saying, you go ahead, you go ahead. We went ahead. What did we achieve? Ministers flew from Sweden to come here. And eventually, because the sticking point in all our dialogue has been Museveni. You like it or not, it's a fact. So the moment we insisted that Museveni must be a topic, we must discuss Museveni, then slowly started losing interest, the communists. So I want to, because this has nothing to do with the FDC. Maybe FDC may not even be there tomorrow. I will be glad, my colleague, Dr. Seranda, if you can go and discuss very good things for Uganda, we will be ashamed, but we will thank you. We will say, okay, for us, we are bad people. But even those who have accepted to talk, talking becomes the achievement. There are no achievements from the talks, but the talk itself becomes the achievement. And they will tell you, we met the president, Museveni, all likes talking to people, even he spoke to Konyi. The achievement of these engagements must not be the engagement themselves.
Dr. Seranda, in all these meetings I've had, you know, the summits, I've even chaired some of them as Democratic Party. Do you look back and see that we have moved from point A to B in the last 10 years? This is what I've achieved. And when you go prepare for the dialogue tomorrow, what kind of things you want to be on the agenda, and are they implementable?
You see, Kamara and the viewers out there, dialogue is a process. I was then, as a young person, in 2007, 2008, as a fresh graduate, behind the laptops then in the Beyond Juba Pistols. That I also got on the way that the ad began. I worked for the Refugee Project then. The dialogue processes are one step ahead, two backwards. But the biggest question we'll be discussing here is the political will, the goodwill. And even if you get all the guarantors in the world, you must get the key people in the house. And I want to believe that in this country, it's not the Wazungu, it's not the Kenyans, it's we as Ugandans first to appreciate that Uganda is bigger than all of us. I know that there are many things to have put on table. There are a few things that have been achieved. But for me, the initiative of sitting here with the Honorable Semuju, with the Honorable Tweheyo, and say we have a Uganda to discuss is very key for us into where we're going. We want to be on record that we have done A, B, C, D. We don't want the man in power to think that he's the only person that can think for this country and all of us are in a bracket and cannot do a discussion. It's a process. And even to get the guns silenced of where we come from, it was a process. Sometimes we have to accept that maybe we are going to be sacrificed for the nation we want to see. So I know that I can set certain a lot, including the POMA, and we have not achieved them, but we have a process of a paperwork which will appreciate if our members of parliament in the House now take on from what we have done for them to take on a process. We did not have a regulation for, I don't know, 7 years. We have now them in place. It is now our leaders that sit in the House that are privileged to be there to put on and say, this is what you agreed. Can we let this go? So that if there is a no, then we say, this is what is happening. But for me, the whole process, when you're coming from a very chaotic elections of this kind, people kidnapped, people being shot, people drawn, and all those. Politics is a game where we have to face ourselves into the face and say this. The leaders will talk, the elders will say many things, the religious leaders. The key is that we, as key players, are facing and meeting ourselves to say this, so that we have it on record we will not get tired. And I want to assure Ugandans that yesterday may have not worked, but we believe that every time you push something, you can achieve. Okay. And we don't have, we might have plan B, but we don't have country B.
Dr. Siranda, Honorable Samuju, and Honorable Tweheyo, we're going to take a break, and on the spot, we'll be right back. Welcome back. You're watching On the Spot. My name is Patrick Amara. My guests tonight are Dr. Gerard Siranda, the Secretary General of the Democratic Party, the Honorable Semuju Ibrahim Munganda, who's the Opposition Chief Whip, and Mr. James Tweheyo, a member of the Central Executive Committee of the party. But online we have Mr. Abdunur Sentongo Chamundu, who's the spokesperson of JEMA. Abdunur, can you hear me?
Yes, I hear you, Patrick.
Yes. Why are you also reluctant, I gather, to join tomorrow's meeting, prepare for the dialogue? Why don't you want to dialogue?
Yes, good evening, Patrick, and good evening, folks in the studio. Our representatives in the IPOD Council brought to us news as leaders of the party that the current type of leadership wants to convene a summit. We looked into the ideas that were political party that had to come on board to make decisions over how we run the party. But previously, we were leaders of IPOD, and we are the party that handed over to NRM. But while at the handover, NRM is in behind us capacity of attending, its leaders, top leaders attending. The chairperson of NRM did not attend the handover, not even his deputy.
I was the president and the Secretary General was the
Instead,
president.
they sent Mr. Tweheyo to receive instruments of power from JEMA to NRM.
Why are you so fixated on having the chairperson attend if NRM is represented from at the highest level by the member of the Central Executive Committee? Why do you want an individual?
Actually, you know, if someone wants to show goodwill in dialogue, the chairman would have attended. The leaders of parties, of leaders, exchanging leadership. I think that is what those that proposed that we have that organ IPOD wanted, that we share leadership amongst ourselves. It would become a norm in the country. But that was denied to us. NRM has adamantly refused to have its top leaders attend the handover of leadership.
So, Mr. Abdunur Sentongo, your issue really is that because you did not have the chairperson of the NRM party attend meeting,
no.
And so for you...
I was coming to the gist of why we are constrained to attend tomorrow's summit. Secondly, that is one reason. But secondly, there is gross violation of human rights in the country. Seriously, you can't be a serious political party and dialogue with the head of state or with the government that behaves as Boko Haram. In Kampala and all over the country, people are abducted. And the government is owning it. The head of state is saying we are the ones abducting people.
And I think, Abdunur, and I think that's one reason why you should dialogue, because the country is not at ease, because there has been chaos. In fact, dialogue should not be coming because we are at peace. Dialogue is coming because we seem to be at each other's throat.
In the previous summit, we had such scenarios happening. We talked about them with Mr. Museveni. So we expect, if Mr. Museveni was willing to dialogue, by now we wouldn't be seeing the same occurrences. But by the fact that such brutality is surfacing, and now it has extended, previously it was to politicians. Now they include journalists and whoever is opposing the regime, suspending even the organization, the NGO that was funding IPOD was suspended, BDF, by Mr. Museveni simply because they suspect it extended some support to an opposition political party. Now, if that is the person that is calling us for dialogue, we are sorry, we cannot.
You know, you sound like a person who has oratory skills. You sound like a firebrand politician, somebody with the gift of the gab. Why don't you meet the chief executive of the country, expose them like they are, so that Ugandans can see them in full glare of what you are saying? Are you really not missing that opportunity?
We have done that. We attended the previous summit. Actually, our brother Siranda, that is advancing. We advanced for the same reason. We faced Mr. Museveni. We talked to him. Actually, Mr. Museveni, what people are forgetting, you know, we've been learning Mr. Museveni and saying, okay, let's give it a chance. Mr. Museveni dialogued with the CONI and his LRA. He sent to the Foreign Affairs Minister then, Dr. Ruhakana Rugunda. But the same president came and said he did not order Rugunda to gun dialogue with the CONI. So you are sitting with such a president.
But
after the previous summit, the president came up and said by 2021, we will not have opposition. But if you have a head of state that thinks that way and you continue to engage him, really we think we need. By the way, I want to state categorically that we believe that dialogue can bring sanity in this country. We can do it through dialogue. But we cannot do it hurriedly, like Mr. Museveni wants us to participate and legitimize his term of office. What I want to tell the viewers, you see, there was a case in the court of Mr. Chagulanyi.
I just want
was withdrawn. Museveni wants to use this opportunity to justify to the world that he can dialogue with opposition, and after he starts violating our rights.
Okay, Mr. Chamundu, I want to thank you so much. But very lastly, really, I mean, with all respect, Jema, I mean, what difference does it create for whether you attend or not? Well, you have one member in parliament. Who is your member of parliament, also your Jema president. You are really a one-man army.
No, Mr. Kamara, parliament is not the yardstick of membership of parties. Parliament has only, I think, 560 MPs the coming parliament will have. But we are 40 million Ugandans. You can't make that as a yardstick of whether Jema is relevant or not. The fact is that even our restraint from attending the summit is something to discuss about. It means we are substantial and we are a big player in the democratization of this country.
All right, Mr. Abdunur Sentongo Chamundu, I want to thank you so much for the time you've given us and your insights. So I'm going to leave the discussion online on phone at that point. Thank you so much, sir. Okay, you can actually see now two more people.
Patrick.
Here.
Patrick, my senior brother Abdunur is being an apologist. Because if you are saying President himself is taking the country as himself, and this time he says, no, much as I'm engaged, I'm sending somebody to stand in for me, who happens to be Tweheyo. And the other person, why should he begin delegating? And yet you want him to go off. You want him to go off, but you don't want him to delegate. Neither do you want the party to develop other cadres who would step in his shoes subsequently. So he acts now as an apologist, and it is as if he's saying, yes, without President Museveni, we as other parties cannot do anything. But leave alone that. The challenge that I can see, particularly with my colleagues, is that when they want the president to appear, and possibly he doesn't appear, they say, aha, we have got a chance to criticize him. And when he says, all right, I'm here, then they say, if we go there, this president may appear to be contagious and may convince us. So they don't want to present their points of view. And by the way, that's the essence of a dialogue. In a dialogue, you all come with different and diverging points of view. It doesn't mean that you will agree on the first sitting, on the second, nor does it mean that you will ever agree. But that engagement alone helps each other to convince the participating parties to understand their points of view, and possibly they get convinced and believe that this is the right line. And perhaps that's why they fear to dialogue with the president. In my view, I think they are not only refusing, but they are saying, this man, if we go there, he will convince us to look at things from his point of view, and we may end up not believing in what we have been thinking.
Actually, Honorable Samoju, to emphasize on his point, I've heard many people say that President Yoweri Museveni, for those who have been with him, is a skilled negotiator, that he can use his skill, that some people are reluctant to meet on one-on-one because they do not know whether they'll come out the same. That's why they fear to engage. Like his persuasion could be infectious and people can turn around. Is that what you're scared of?
I mean, there are things that the institution like the FDC will prevent them from meeting Mr. Museveni. But there are also things that will prevent an individual. I'll tell you, one time, I think the second time, we were supposed to record a radio program. I appear on that radio, and Museveni said the recording should take place in the State House. I had refused to go. Why? Not because I was fearing Museveni, that he has very superior arguments. The unfortunate thing, the things that Mr. Museveni accused the Benais of doing, is done many, many times more than what Benais was doing, turning State House into a clearing house. I'll tell you my experience. Eventually I said, okay, if people think Museveni has a superior argument, I will go and then I will dismantle them. And I am very happy that I did. But when the show had ended, his Minister of Lands that time, Dawood Migereko, hugged me, said, oh, my brother, thank you very much for seeing the light. Because the biggest business that were taking place in the State House was compromising politicians.
So they had matured you in a way.
So he thought I had been, so that maybe I had come for personal. I didn't know that there was a radio program being recorded.
Oh, okay.
He thought I had gone to cut a deal. So the trouble, what you call skills, I think Mr. Museveni, maybe in the past he wanted to persuade people to work with. But by the way, it doesn't surprise me. I've said this many times when he was telling some of the key military people that how do we hold on to power? And he gave many reasons, but one of them was money. He said, oh, these ones making noise in town, all of us making, at that time I think I was a boy in school, they want money, so that one I'll handle. So Mr. Museveni thinks every person who goes to him, and that's what happened, by the way, even to the religious leaders who used to traffic documents to FDC for a dialogue. The moment they went there, the Catholics, I will give money in your circle. I will also complete this. Mubaje, what is your problem? We will handle. So sometimes because of the way Mr. Museveni has conducted himself, when people see you with him, they think you're also going to make a deal. So at a personal level, it takes courage to go and you appear with Museveni at a personal level. But at an institutional level, we represent a public that has demands that must be made. If the meeting that Museveni held, or Museveni attended of IPOD in Munyonyo, and they had the resolutions and publicized them in the newspapers, if they achieved more than half of those resolutions, you look very bad not to go and negotiate the remainder. But there is no tangible, because at that time, using the Public Order Management Act to disperse our meetings, to beat us, was a very crucial discussion. Okay. But eventually, even after Munyonyo, the beating only got worsened. So, so at an institutional level, it's not that you are fearing Museveni's superior argument or his skills to convince people, but you are fearing Museveni's, I'm going to find a polite word, that you will sit with him, and the only achievement 10 years down the road by IPOD is that we are meeting. Maybe we need to turn ourselves into a social club. The deputy president goes to Popo for drinking every day. The public does not expect anything from that drinking, socialization. If that's what we want to do, we need to be honest with ourselves. So that becomes part of the IPOD as an institution. But to go to a meeting with Museveni, who is presiding over torture, and he comes on TV and he says, I have deployed soldiers who are in Somalia with skills to deal with people in urban centers. Those ones who are fighting ADF, they are the ones who are kidnapping people in Kampala, beating them. You need to look at these boys. In my village, in Chirinya, I have 2 of them. One, his back was broken. Another one is limping. And they committed no crime. Why? Even until the day of their release, the one of Chirinya was arrested at a construction site in Mukono. His crime was that he was in Mukono. They simply drove them, 17 of them, and abandoned them in the sugarcane plantation. So therefore, I want to ask, and I want to commend DP for their courage, that a person who has done all this, they are still optimistic. I interviewed the Honorable Elia Kategaya. He's the only person Museveni said was his friend. He said he doesn't have friends, but he said Kategaya is my friend. And the Kategaya told me, having studied with Museveni in, I think, Chamate, in Tare, everywhere, he said, my problem, I was too believing. He believed too much in Museveni. And he kept saying, when we are writing the NRA Manifesto 2001, on 9 pages, Museveni said, this is my last term, on 9 pages. Then he made a U-turn, and he said, my crime was Kategaya, late now, is that I was too believing. I don't want to accuse my colleagues in DP and UPC of being too believing, but they are bordering at being too. So
okay.
therefore,
there are things you have raised in your submission. First of all, that the recommendations they have not been worked upon, and yet you had agreed on how to move on. You know, why
it's now restarting.
Why would you have to go into this summit and these dialogues where recommendations are made, where you want to move from point A to B, and you never move, and you keep moving in circles? It doesn't help.
I want to appreciate Honorable Semuju's contribution in the subject, but he's discussing on a point of fear. Fear is good, but sometimes when you overfear, then it becomes very dangerous to your own self. There are many things in the good house where he works from in Parliament that we've put on our mind that this is what we want to do. We have not achieved them. Even after they go to caucus and come, we have still nominated candidates and paid for them to go to the same house, even when we know we are not going to achieve anything. We have not stopped waking up in the morning, going to the house, going to the floor and deliberate, even when we know we are not going to do anything. We don't have the numbers. We still have gone to that house and made our contribution, and yet it has gone to a record. And I want to appreciate you for continuing to do that. Otherwise, if you had the same fear, maybe you wouldn't even be going to the floor of Parliament to at least put some sense and whatever good discussion that you've put. But they don't even care about whatever good discussion you've done. They still vote, and we lose. You go when you're beaten, but the following morning you wake up and you're on the floor again. I want that same spirit that you use in the house, even when we don't win on anything. We wake up in the morning and go to the same discussion. When you're going to dialogue, sometimes you don't put a no, like Chamundu was putting. You don't. Every time you put, this is a no-go zone, then you're not going to go to dialogue. And Jema, with due respect, sometime in the summit, where it is a summit, Honorable Asuman did not come. He delegated. We appreciated Honorable Mayanja and carried on with the discussion. I think for me, the spirit in what we want to get, we the only hope, we that sit on this side, with the Honorable Tuheo, if we lose hope, and sometimes it's good to listen to the lead, but we should give a direction to the lead of where we want to take the country. Otherwise, if every time it's the lead, we will become gallery people. I know the gallery is good, but every time you overplay in the gallery, then you even lose control of where you want. God has given us the authority and the grace to be in these positions. For me to sit here, So I want to do everything within my energy to put up, and then maybe they will judge that this is what we put up and we've not got them. There are several discussions of torture. I have my own people. The Palisa man from Kamuge was here, border rider. He was picked up. But this is an opportunity we have. I won't call it an opportunity because when we went to this dialogue, we're looking at a process where we can say something, out something. This very man, I know that people are doing it on his behalf. On whether he knows or not, they are doing it for him. He's the commander-in-chief, the army is under him, the police is working under him. This is an opportunity and the time that we have tomorrow, face to face in the public, to let him know that this is what is happening. Okay. Can you prove yourself? Whether you can, because I know from a call away, even if there is trial processes and all those, I know that we can get something out of this. The IPOD process, I told you, we did a discussion, we put a paperwork. It's about now the minister tabling it before Parliament, and then we get the regulations on POMA out. There are certain things we have got in place.
That's exactly what I wanted to ask Mr. James Tuheyo, because in the previous meeting, you had agreed to revise, among others, the implementation of POMA, which was not done, because it was stopping other politicians to do their political activities. So why would the people like the Honorable Semuju and Mr. Chamundu meet you when you cannot implement what you have agreed on?
You should not take it that we cannot implement, but you should appreciate that implementation is a process. When you are going to revise a law that is in place, you don't just sit in your house because you're a president and say, I have revised this. Because the law itself has gone through a process. And it should also go again through the same process until it reaches. These colleagues are saying, look, we agree on these issues, we don't implement them. There are some few things that you can implement by instruction. Very few. But there are many of these issues, policy issues, that you can't take as a president and you say, since I am the president and the executive of this country, I am going to reverse them. You reverse them through an agreed process, and the process which is legal. And I can give you a quick example. When you talk of the financing of parties by government, it was agreed in the Parliament. The modalities were agreed. These colleagues, when we met with them, we agreed on what it should be. But it was contrary to the regulations in Parliament, the law. So we had to take it back to Parliament. Honorable Semuju knows how the legislations are processed and put back to what they are supposed to, or revised. When you talk of, for example, this matter he was putting up, say POMA. POMA, yes, is a law which was assented to, and it was legislated to in Parliament. So the president will not bend or change the law, even when the law may be favoring him. It is only prudent that it is taken through the process, through Parliament, which my colleagues know. And Parliament, that is the reason why, as he had said, we have all these brains in Parliament. They will go there and guide on this. Okay. And that's the reason why, actually, as a party, we would be happy to get all these other colleagues there. They guide the government. They put their own arguments. It doesn't mean that when they put their arguments, NRM as a mass party will ignore them. No. It is receptive.
I understand it is through IPOD that we find all political parties that are represented in Parliament are financed. And but there has been a problem. Okay, this is what I want to say. There has been a disagreement on how political parties should be financed. Is that the case?
Yeah, let me help to Heyo. He may not know. The problem of Ugandan politics has nothing to do with the law. Has everything to do with the conduct of Mr. Museveni as a president. That POMA you are talking about, we even set up a committee chaired by Dr. Ruhakana Rugonda. He went with the Attorney General, the Shadow Attorney General, the leader of opposition, and the disagreement was on the interpretation of clauses. If I'm going to hold a rally, do I need to seek permission, or I simply notify police? And it was agreed, and we wrote a memorandum agreeing on the interpretation of the law that police does not have power to stop a meeting, you only notify them. That document was signed on to by the Prime Minister, by the Attorney General and Shadow Attorney General Abdul Katuntu on our behalf. The implementation, for example, today we are in Parliament, when the Honorable J.J. Odongo, Minister of Internal Affairs, was presenting a list of people, he said arrested. And we asked him, under which law can people be held in a military detention, military dungeon, like it used to happen under Amin and Obut, for this number of months? And he's as helpless as you. All of you are victims. That's why sometimes it fits me that victims are here discussing. Maybe it does. I was in Ruzira. I was arrested for walking from Chireka, and the charge that was put on file was terrorism, later to be reduced to being a public nuisance. Yes, but when you're in Ruzira, you're all victims. You can sit there and have a chat for you to be able to run the clock. So therefore, because NRM people have a tendency of wanting to shield Mr. Museveni from the responsibility. There is no problem with the POMA. There is a problem with the violation of that and other pieces of legislation. Okay. And all these things are happening. You see, until Mr. Museveni came on TV and said, now we can have a list, even the government was denying it exists. JJ came to Parliament, he said, okay, I've had cases 44, but I don't know, except 13, the others, I don't know where they are. Today, the same person who said he only knows 44, he came with 176. So, and that's why all my colleague here, Siranda, says, don't fear, don't fear. When you asked him what have they achieved, he said, no, we don't fear.
But you see, Honorable
and I want to encourage
before
them.
We take a break, you see,
yes.
It's through that pressure at Parliament. For somebody who was saying, I only know about 44.
Yeah.
And you are saying, you know, there are a lot more. The same man, through the pressure that you showed, was now giving you a number 176.
Yeah.
So you have achieved, there's something you have achieved of having some process of talking, some process of debate.
It's not because we are talking, it is because this was a collective nation pressure from the media, from civil society, from the victims themselves, and then Parliament later on. I am not, by the way, saying in any way, and if this is not saying that dialogue is bad, we are only cautioning those who are going in a dialogue with Mr. Museveni that please wait a minute. The person you're talking about, all his contemporaries, one by one, they were seated with him in that house. They all left crying, oh, what? Betrayed by my reader. That is the book by John Kazora. For you, Njua, why are you crying? Oh, betrayed by my reader. Kategaya, what is the problem? Oh, I was too believing. So that's why we are telling Sirana that as you go to meet that person in that house where he has been meeting people, everybody who has left crying. So go there knowing. Us who are sure that you will leave when you are crying, we have said we respect those who are going to try, but we will excuse ourselves.
Okay, gentlemen, hold on to your points because we're going to take a break, and on the spot we'll be right back. When we come back, we shall have you get the opportunity to tell us what you think about the dialogue, and those who want to attend and those who don't want. You will see the numbers on the screen. You pick your phone and call us, and should you disagree with the gentleman in the studio, that's okay, but disagree with respect. We'll be right back. Welcome back. You're watching On the Spot. My name is Patrick Kamara. My guests are Dr. Gerard Siranda, Honorable Ibrahim Semojunganda, and Honorable James Tweheyo. And we're discussing the IPOD dialogue that is supposed to begin tomorrow, the process of understanding which kind of agenda they're going to have and when to really have that summit. Some parties, JEM and FDC, are saying we won't take part, and the NRM and the Democratic Party and the UPC are in. They're ready to attend that summit. So what do you think? You're going to see the numbers on your screen. Please, you can get your phone and call us and be precise. I have a call online. Hello? Hello?
Atugereko.
Kale Sebo.
Kakati nze bampita Musa.
Okay, Musa, go right ahead, sir.
Njagala okwebaza omwami oyo Gerard Seranda wa Democratic Party. Njagala okwebaza Honorable Semuju. Njagala n'okwebaza omwami oyo wa NRM amanya gasigamanya omanya wa NRM.
Mr. James Tweheyo.
Kakati ensonga za IPOD James Tweheyo, ensonga za IPOD zandibadde nnungi singa zikubiriza kabeera President Museveni nga bwe kigenda okuba wadde nga n'abalala nabo babadde bajjanga bakubiriza. Njagala okuwagira Ssemuju ne pati ye nawulira n'abajeema babadde bagenda kubaayo naye engeri gye batabaddeyo kijja kunkola bulungi. Kati katulabe aba Democratic Party bano n'aba UPC bwe baba batugamba nti bali ku opposition njagala mbategeere bulungi nnyo Democratic Party yali tate yange nga sinnagenda mu NUP naye njagala ntegeere Robert Mao ntegeere n'omwami owa UPC biki bye bagenda okudisikasinga ebyo oluyali abantu bali mu makomera babasibye abantu babakidinapinze abantu babuliddwa abaabwe nga you are still going to negotiate with that man Museveni.
Okay, you've made your point, sir. Well, you're going to see what they're going to negotiate, what they're going to talk about. I have another call online.
Hello.
Hello.
From Ambassador 5 days from Natete.
Natete.
Nja kusonyo okuba embogo naye nganze ku mulamwa gwetesaako ogwo mulamwa oguliko nebaza abali mu suudi yaawo omulamwa gwe bagenda okuteesaako ogugenda okubiza muzeeyi Museveni bagenda kunywa mbunywi kacaayi na kulambula gwe tosobola kugamba nga mu Uganda mukyalimu ebintu ebyokuvuganya nga pulezidenti avuganye basobola omukubatiya gaasi ne bamukwata jeeke n'ogamba ffe tugenda tuwa ne Museveni obanze ndi wa TP tuwa ne Museveni mulabe maaso.
Okay. Okay. I can feel the emotion in the voice and the commitment to their political divide. I have another call online. Hello.
Hello.
Good evening, sir. What's your name and where are you calling from?
Thank you, Mr. Kamara. Dr. Mujiga.
Okay.
Yeah. And I have a few things here I want to make. Hope your produce wanting my code.
The problem is that your line is not very clear, sir, and I have a problem getting you very clear.
Hello.
Yes?
Hello.
Go right ahead, sir.
When you read history, after the French Revolution, the Baboon royalty, after 25 years in Israel, because of the harsh policies and brutality of kangaroos, when these baboons were restored, to the same mentality they had 25 years before the exile. And one wise man of the day described these people as people who learned nothing and forgot nothing. Mr. Kumar has been following the politics of this country. And at the of every stolen election, such diversionary stories come up. 2016, 2011, even up to now, we are in the same thing. Diversionary stories. They're trying to divert Ugandans who are still mourning of the stolen victory. Mr. Semuju, why this discussion at this time? People are still crying. If I were you, I would, whenever I get airtime on TV, I would be reading the list of your voters who are rotting in jail, but not to divert Ugandans, indulge in diversionary stories like this one, you know?
Okay, you've made your point.
And lastly,
yes.
If there is nothing that has come out of IPOD, why, for heaven's sake, do you even waste your time discussing discussing things that have not yielded?
Okay.
And I've heard another story of extending term limits.
Okay, you have made your point, sir. Thank you so much. the gentleman here will respond to you, and I'm sure Mr. Tuheyo and Dr. Siranda. Let me take two more callers, and then we can have my guests make their concluding remarks. I have a call online. Hello.
Hello.
Good evening, sir.
Good evening.
What's your name and where are you calling from?
This is Alan calling in from Bali.
Alan, you're on air, sir.
This is Alan calling in from Bali.
Yes, go right ahead.
Good evening, sir.
Oh, Alan, your problem is that you are listening to your own echo and it was confusing you. So in case you call, please turn down the volume of your TV so that it does not bring an echo to you or to us. I have a call online. Hello.
Yes, Patrick Kamal, good evening.
Good evening. Who is this I'm talking to and where are you calling from?
This time I'm calling from New Kampala.
Okay.
Yes, I want to salute Munjinganda. There is no any party wiser than those people of FDC. Because you cannot go and talk to someone who just seen they've tortured people. At the end of the day, they want to convince people now to go and talk. To talk what?
Thank you.
That's why I want to salute FDC.
All right, thank you so much. All right, my producer is telling me I can take just one more. I have a call online. Hello. Hello.
Hello.
Yes, good evening.
This is John.
John, where are you calling from?
I'm calling from Chengera. But you see, I am 25 years old.
Yes, John.
And whenever I listen to people like Tiranda, I really lose hope. You see, I used to be DP at university at Makerere, UID. But now that I'm in life and I'm working, I don't even see the relevance of contributing to that party. Because really, Mr. Semujo has put the record straight. This country, the kind of dialogue we need, goes deeper than the kind of dialogue that IPOD, which is even an extra constitutional body, is offering. So in conclusion, DP, please get back to the drawing board. I think you sold the party because these talks are only achieving one aim. Geopolitically, Mr. Museveni has been butchered. If you listen to CNN, if you listen to Wall Street Journal, so this dialogue is a way of gaining that respect that, you know, after a heated moment, now things are calm, and then we forget about people who are in jail. Mr. Surrender, please, please. I think you should go back to the drawing board.
All right.
Stop playing someone's joke.
All right. Thank you. Thank you so much. Closing the lines. We appreciate. Okay. Gentlemen, I think, I don't know, we have two people who are for the meeting and one who is not for. So let me begin with you, Dr. Siranda, Mr. Tuheyo, and conclude with the Honorable Ibrahim.
I want to appreciate the callers. For me, the voice and the emotions that attach the callers actually give me a more push that I need to do a lot of engagement because by the MOU, I am going to face him. So what the callers are saying actually continue to push me that there is a need for us to remove these tensions, de-escalate the tensions, and face this person that everybody is saying you've done ABCD, you've done this, you've done that. And I want to let Ugandans know that I am not in IPOD because I've taken myself. We have an MOU, and colleagues knew that by the time we signed the MOU, Museveni was going to be part of the MOU. He's the chairman of the NRM, and we cannot just skip that we've skipped him. No, we will not jump NRM. He's a rotational. The time of the summit has come when the NRM is in the chair. And I want to get disturbed that colleagues participate in every process of the IPOD. When it comes to the summit, they withdraw. JEMA and FDC and all of us at the summit, Kamara, I want to assure you they contributed to everything that we're going to discuss. They have been part of the process. And we want to appreciate for the contribution that they put on the floor. The mover of the motion for us to go to the summit was a JEMA person. The seconder was an FDC person for us to go to the summit. So I want us to appreciate, and we continue believing that we'll continue persuading them. Tomorrow morning, maybe they will show up. The goodwill that we are taking to this discussion is that we have one Uganda, we have no plan B for Uganda, we can have plan B on how we maneuver and get where, but Uganda is one country, and the time is now when we are from an election like this that we have to go and discuss. I only get disturbed with people that are comfortably in whatever civil society and say you used to be former DP. You have no right to comment on DP now. You lost your right the moment you jumped out of DP. You can only comment. I can decide to take whatever you are advising or not. Right now, there is room open for you. The party is still open. If you want to come and enjoy the will of the full member, then you can come back to the party. But otherwise, we that have taken a decision to run away from what we were doing to do this politics, we also deserve a bit of respect. Ugandans that want to divert you will always comment that you're working for somebody. They used to say, DP mukolerani, FDC mukolerani. They have also now come. We will also ask, mukolerani.
Okay. Thank you so much, Mr. Tohe, parting shot.
Yeah, thank you. I'm looking at the sentiments that these callers were betraying in their calls. You see, the moment sentiments and the sentimentalism in it begin to outshine reason, they know there is a problem. And once there is a problem, then there is a need to sit down and look for a solution. And it is not only NRM that must look for a solution. Actually, these other parties that are raising the issue of a problem would be best to be available to say, look, NRM, there is this problem. They could even go an extra mile to propose a solution, which if NRM had failed to look at, perhaps would look at it. And that brings the good example my brother was bringing, because if it was the case that members of parliament who are in opposition would not achieve anything whatsoever in parliament, they wouldn't even be there. They wouldn't even be raising voices. But the moment they raise voices, what they raise may change the opinion, may change the attitude, may change the method of work, may bring results. Even if it was one lone voice, I can guarantee you, the government of NRM listens. You may claim it is not doing what you want them to do or what you want us to do, but the fact still remains we listen, and perhaps when we listen to the voices of the people who do not necessarily have to be of NRM, we put into considerations their feelings. We also listen to their demands. If they are genuine and reasonable demands, we take action. But if we think they are not in line with the NRM principles, then we are not obliged to take action, but at least we would have had them.
Okay.
So that's the more reason why I would encourage all the other friends and foes, sit down on table, have a discussion, form the agenda. Because the purpose of this IPOD meeting of tomorrow is to form the agenda for the dialogue. And therefore, where would you ever bring your agenda for the dialogue that you would want to happen? Certainly you would miss the opportunity, I can guarantee you.
Actually,
and possible at one point or another, you would have been the very person who would have betrayed your own people.
All right, gentlemen, then we have Honorable Samuju Ganda make your concluding remark.
Maybe I need to Dr. Sida needs to understand how human beings work. I sit in parliament. Sometimes you sit in committees of parliament. I sit on committee on legal and parliamentary affairs and COSAS. Prepare a report. And the colleague tells you we have two speakers that if so and so is the one chairing, I am not attending. That doesn't mean that because you have participated in drafting a report, therefore it has become mandatory that you will go to sit in a house chaired by a person you don't like. That's how human beings behave. There are people who are not comfortable sitting in meetings with Mr. Museveni because of history and because of his conduct. When they excuse themselves, please don't accuse them that you and so you are the one who proposed the motion. We do that every day in meetings. But the most important point is that after 35 years in power, Mr. Museveni will need to demonstrate good faith. Then people will go to speak to him. I have told you, everybody who has gone to speak to Museveni, the results he has carried back home. From religious leaders, Justice Ogola, the Situation Room, you IPOD yourselves, you are in Munyonyo, And I'm not bragging. I am a member of IPOD Council. I have never attended a single meeting, not even one, not half a meeting. Because for me,
quite often absent.
I have never attended the meeting. I keep asking myself, do I become a Kategaya too believing, or you go and do some other things? Because I don't want to, but I'll leave that at that. So therefore, as you go tomorrow, Mr. Tweheyo and Dr. Seranda, we wish you well. If you return and you brought results, the country will be happy. If you become part of the history, and Museveni likes talking. The other day he collected some smaller political parties and took them to Fairway under Chiyonga. After the talking, Ochegere became ambassador in Nigeria. I met him there when I went with the parliamentary committee and so on. So those are the things he likes, that you go and present person. Even MPs go to meet him. Sir, I want you to attend my wedding. Naturally, you take the date. He likes patronizing people. If, I mean, there are colleagues in FDC who are patient, they can go, me, I am not.
Okay.
So therefore, tomorrow, we will wait. Maybe we will start with, because I think now the Munyonyo resolutions have been abandoned. Now the meeting, it is a meeting to discuss a meeting. And we wish you well.
Okay.
One small thing.
You want to correct something?
Yes, I think this summit meeting will have the report of what we've been discussing and then put on table and say, this was under you, what did we do? Like we said on POMA. POMA, the challenges were not with the law, was with the regulations. We did them. And we are waiting for the minister to table them before Parliament. What have we done?
Have nothing.
And we have been going to church. I pray at Kampala Worship Center. We have never got tired of rebuking the devil. We have been praying for 2,000 plus years, thy kingdom come. We have not gotten tired of saying thy kingdom come. We will not get tired.
It's not coming here. You know where you
we
will find it.
We will not get tired.
We
shall rebuke the devil and rebuke the devil.
Him as a Muslim, he knows the ceremonial stoning of the devil.
We will continue rebuking the devil every day.
Gentlemen, I want to thank you so much for your time.
Maybe
I want to appreciate
just a last word.
Yes.
You know, I remain a professional teacher, and it would be unfair if I closed this discussion without wishing very well our candidates, especially those who have started the exams, and our teachers.
You should teach them properly.
Really, and our teachers.
You NRM, you sit 700,000 children.
All right.
PLE, more than half fail. Now you are wishing them to fail.
No, I'm not talking about failure.
Yeah.
All right.
I'm talking about
my stakeholders will address that.
I want to thank you so much for your time. I appreciate your insights on these matters. And you Ugandans, you know probably who's right and who's wrong. And I believe you know better, and you have different political parties where you belong. If your party has represented you well, that's okay. If they haven't, perhaps you have a mechanism through which you can ask why. And for those of you who are sitting exams here on the spot, we wish you luck. Good night and God bless Uganda.